The house had been empty for 42 years, or at least that's what the locals said. No one dared get close, not even the teenagers who usually found thrills in empty barns and crumbling graveyards. Its dark silhouette loomed over a vast, misty field on the outskirts of Gravenmore, where the wind seemed to whisper in a language no one wanted to understand. Daniel Hale didn't believe in ghosts. That's what he told himself, anyway. A struggling photographer desperate for a breakout piece, Daniel had come to Gravenmore chasing a story he'd read in an obscure online forum. Locals reported seeing lights in the windows at night, shapes in the fields. One even claimed to hear a piano playing deep into the early hours. The perfect setup for a viral photo essay. He arrived just before dusk. The air smelled of rot and something metallic. The dirt road leading to the house was overgrown, and the wind seemed unnaturally still as he approached the porch. His camera hung around his neck like a noose. The house itself was Victorian and sprawling, with spindly towers and flaking paint that peeled like old scabs. The windows were blind with dust. Daniel pushed open the door, surprised it wasn't locked. It groaned on its hinges like something being disturbed from sleep. Inside, the air was freezing. There was no power, yet he could feel a subtle hum under his feet, as if the floorboards were vibrating at a frequency just below human hearing. Dust motes swirled in his flashlight beam. A child's rocking horse sat in the hall, swaying ever so slightly. He started snapping photos. Click, flash, click. The camera made him feel safe. He moved through the house, noting the antique furniture, the claw-footed tub filled with black water, the mirror in the parlor that showed the hallway behind him even when he wasn't standing there. In the attic, he found something strange, a sealed door with no handle. Scratched into the wood in what looked like fingernail marks were 5 letters, M-A-R-R-O-W. He pressed his ear to the door. For a moment, he heard nothing. Then music. Faint, warbling, like a broken music box playing underwater. He stepped back, suddenly cold all over. And just then, his camera shutter clicked on its own. When he looked down, the photo preview showed a blurry figure standing behind him, though he had been alone. At least, he thought he had been. Daniel froze. The image on the camera's screen showed a woman. Long hair, pale face, mouth open as if caught mid-scream. He spun around, flashlight trembling in his hand, but the attic was empty. The sealed door loomed silently behind him. The only sound now was his own ragged breathing and something else, the steady tick-tick-tick of his camera, snapping photos on its own. He turned it off, pulled the battery, but it clicked again. He bolted down the attic stairs, heart pounding. The hallway below seemed darker than before, even though the sun had only just set. He reached the main floor and locked himself in what had once been the study. The furniture was covered in sheets. Dust thick as ash coated everything. There was a desk in the corner, with an ancient-looking journal resting on top. The cover was cracked leather, and the name on the front was nearly worn away, but he could still make it out. Dr. Joseph G. Merrill. Flipping through the journal, Daniel found sketches of human anatomy at first. Then things. Twisted things. One page was dominated by a drawing of a man whose mouth had been stretched into a permanent scream, eyes stitched shut with wire. Beside it was a handwritten note. The vessel must be emptied before it can be filled. Hollowed clean. Only then will the gate open again. Further entries detailed experiments involving isolation, darkness, and something he referred to only as the crossing. Daniel's hands trembled as he turned the last page. A date was scrawled, October 31st, 1982, the day the house was supposedly abandoned. Beneath it, she is almost ready. I can hear her breathing through the walls. A sudden pounding noise jerked Daniel upright. Not from the door. From inside the walls. He backed away slowly, flashlight beam flitting over the wallpaper. The knocking grew louder, rhythmic, deliberate. Then he saw it. The pattern in the wallpaper was moving. Shifting. A face pressed through from the inside like something pushing against a rubber sheet, eyes bulging, lips mouthing words he couldn't hear. Daniel stumbled backward, slamming into the desk, knocking the journal to the floor. The face vanished. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, from somewhere upstairs, a faint voice, distant but clear, "Daniel, come help me." His blood turned to ice. No one knew he was here. The voice shouldn't have known his name. Daniel hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, the flashlight's beam wavering across the cracked wallpaper. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. Rationality urged him to run, to leave the house and never look back. But curiosity, That damned compulsion that had driven him here in the first place now rooted him in place. He ascended the staircase slowly. Each step creaked beneath his weight. The air thickened the higher he climbed, like walking into a fog made of cold breath. He passed the attic door. It was shut again, though he hadn't closed it. The sealed door inside, the one marked "Marrow," scratched at the back of his mind like a splinter under the skin. The voice had come from the second floor. As he reached the landing, he saw a narrow hallway stretching ahead, the floor warped and uneven. Doors lined both sides, all of them slightly ajar. The house was breathing. He could hear it, though it expanding and contracting with each pulse of silence. Then he heard the whisper again. This time, it came from the third door on the left. "Daniel," a child's voice, barely audible. "Please, I'm in the dark." He pushed open the door. It was a bedroom, small, with torn wallpaper and a child's bed under the window. Toys lay scattered across the floor, untouched for decades. At first, the room appeared empty, but then he noticed the closet. Its door was closed, and something was moving inside. He raised the flashlight, stepping closer. The handle rattled before he could touch it. A whisper hissed through the crack. "Don't open it. Don't let her out." Daniel froze. Then something banged hard against the door from inside, and he instinctively flung it open. Darkness spilled out. Not just shadow and oily, cold void that swallowed the light. And in the middle of it stood a little girl. Barefoot, pale, her hair tangled around her face. Her eyes were wrong. Too dark. Too wide. She smiled. "You let me out." Daniel stumbled back, but the void was receding now, retreating like a shadow under morning light. The girl stepped into the room and looked around, as if waking from a long sleep. "They made me stay in there until the hollow ones came," she whispered. "They said I had to be clean inside. But they were wrong. They left the gate open." Daniel was speechless. The girl looked up at him. "Will you help me close it?" she asked. Before he could answer, a low sound vibrated through the house like a groan or a roar from beneath the floorboards. The girl's head tilted. "Too late," she said. "They're awake again." The floor shook beneath Daniel's feet, a deep thrumming that echoed up through the walls like a buried heartbeat. The girl, if she even was a girl, stood perfectly still, staring at nothing. Her mouth moved silently as though speaking to someone invisible. Then she turned to Daniel and said, "They're beneath us. Listening. They hate the light." He didn't ask what they were. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. Suddenly, the light from his flashlight flickered, then cut out entirely. Total darkness fell over the room like a blanket. The only light came from the hallway, faint, reddish, unnatural. Daniel stepped back toward the door, hand on the frame. "You shouldn't go down there," the girl said. "The house knows you now." But he was already moving. He had to get out. He moved quickly down the hallway, toward the stairs. Only, when he reached them, the layout had changed. The stairs now led up, not down, into a blackened void that breathed cold air. Behind him, the girl screamed. It was high, sharp, inhuman, a sound that didn't belong in a child's throat. Daniel turned just in time to see a figure burst from the floorboards behind her. Tall, eyeless, gaunt like a corpse stretched too thin. Its mouth was a hole, just a hole, round and pulsing. Another one slithered from the wall, joints bending in the wrong directions. More emerged, slipping through cracks, unfolding like spiders from under the furniture. The hollow ones. Daniel ran. He didn't think, he just moved, bursting through a random door and slamming it behind him. He turned to find himself in a different room entirely. This one was lit, faintly, from above, by a single flickering chandelier. Walls lined with portraits stared down at him. The faces were smeared, not painted that way, melted. A fireplace dominated one wall, and above it hung a large mirror. But the reflection didn't match the room. In the mirror, the fireplace was lit, and someone stood beside it. It was him. Only he was smiling in the reflection, smiling wrong. The mirrored version of himself turned slowly to look directly at Daniel and raised a finger to its lips. Shoo. Then it reached toward the glass and started pushing through. Daniel stumbled back as the hand pressed through the mirror like the surface of a pond. Fingers emerged first, long, white, the nails cracked and yellow. The rest followed, his own face warped into something joyless and wide-eyed, like a corpse forced into a grin. Its movements were slow but certain, like it had been waiting. The thing stepped into the room, barefoot, wearing his clothes, his camera hanging around its neck, but with a broken lens dripping something black. Daniel ran for the door, yanking it open and sprinting into a hallway that hadn't existed before. Behind him, he heard footsteps, slow, deliberate. It was following him. He tore through the house, every turn revealing something new. Hallways that looped back on themselves, staircases that ended in brick walls, doors that opened into blank rooms filled with whispering shadows. Finally, he burst into what looked like a dining room. A long table stretched into darkness, with rotting chairs on either side. Candles lined the center, already lit, wax running like blood. Seated at the head of the table was the girl. She looked up at him calmly. "You're inside it now," she said. "What?" Daniel gasped. "The house. It's alive. Dr. Marrow didn't build it. He found it. A place between places. The hollow ones were here first, and he tried to trap them. But they learned how to copy him." She gestured toward the seat beside her. "They're doing it to you now." Daniel backed away. "No, I'm not. You felt it, haven't you? The cold behind your eyes. The way the rooms keep changing. They're learning you." The door behind him opened slowly. Mirror Daniel stepped into the room, its head twitching to one side like a puppet pulled on wires. Its smile stretched wider, splitting at the corners. The girl stood. "If it touches you, it'll finish copying. And then..." She didn't need to say the rest. Daniel turned and bolted again, pushing through another door, this one leading into a library filled with dust and rotting books. The mirror thing didn't follow. Not yet. He leaned against a shelf, catching his breath, when a familiar object caught his eye on a nearby desk, a second camera. Identical to his. Dust-covered, cracked, but still intact. It had a name scratched into the strap. Harrow. His heart stopped. Andrew Harrow had been the original poster on the obscure forum that led Daniel here, and he had gone missing 2 months ago. Daniel snatched up the old camera, his fingers trembling as he turned it over. Dust clung to the worn leather, but the name was clear. A Harrow. His breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just coincidence. Harrow had been here, inside the house, and left this behind. He searched the desk and found a torn notebook underneath a stack of brittle paper. The first page was filled with frantic scrawl. "If you're reading this, you're already trapped. The house isn't a place. It's a parasite. It learns you. It shapes itself around you. And the more you notice it, the more it feeds." Daniel flipped through page after page. Harrow's descent into madness was recorded in fragments. The faces in the portraits are changing again. One of them looked like my mother last night. I haven't seen the sun in 3 days. Every window shows night, even at noon. She talks to me from the attic door. She says if I open it, I can go free. I don't believe her anymore. The final page chilled Daniel to the bone. It made another me. It even cries like me, bleeds like me, but it can't lie like me. That's how I know. Just below it, in larger, smeared letters, "Don't let it finish. Burn the copy, or you'll become the echo." Suddenly, the sound of laughter echoed from the hallway. High-pitched, childlike. The girl. Only something was wrong with it now. It was too loud. It echoed wrong. Daniel looked up and saw shadows flickering beyond the door, long fingers sliding across the floor like roots searching for something to grab. He shoved the journal into his bag and sprinted out of the library. He no longer cared where he went, only that he got away. Doors slammed shut behind him. Windows vanished as he passed. The architecture of the house was warping in real time, rearranging itself like it was dreaming. He stumbled into a room he hadn't seen before. Tiled floor, surgical equipment, a rusted operating table. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, swaying. On the table lay a body, covered by a blood-stiffened sheet. His stomach churned as he pulled it back. The corpse was eyeless, jaw dislocated, the ribcage hollowed out. Its face was his, and it was smiling. Then it opened its mouth and whispered, almost ready. Daniel staggered backward, knocking over a tray of rusted surgical tools. The corpse on the table didn't move again. Its mouth hung open in a slack grin, as though death had caught it mid-laugh. He turned away, while rising in his throat, and ran. The house seemed angrier now. The walls creaked and groaned, nails pulling themselves loose from the wood like the whole place was straining to contain something. Or someone. Daniel's thoughts raced. The hollow ones were trying to copy him. The house was reshaping around him. And now this corpse, was it a failed copy? A warning? As he passed a hallway mirror, he caught his reflection twitch. It smiled. He hadn't. He punched the glass, shattering it. But the shards just floated there in the air, suspended in place, each one still showing his smiling face. He ran faster. Downstairs again, at least, he thought it was downstairs. The steps were spongy now, as though the house was breathing through them. He found himself in a basement corridor lit only by flickering bulbs overhead. The air was heavy with mildew and something sweet, rotting. At the end of the hallway was a heavy iron door. Etched across its rusted surface were the same 5 letters, Marrow. The girl's voice returned, whispering in his ear though no one was near him. He never closed the gate. He thought if he hollowed enough people, he could seal them in the dark forever. Daniel grabbed the handle. It burned his palm, but he didn't let go. The door creaked open, revealing a massive underground chamber. The walls were covered in what looked like veins, throbbing, wet, alive. At the center was a pit, black and bottomless, rimmed with human bones. And above it, suspended in the air by wires and tendrils, was Dr. Marrow, or what was left of him. His body was hollowed out like the corpse upstairs, his chest cavity gaping, yet he was still alive. His eyes moved slowly toward Daniel. "You shouldn't be here," Marrow croaked. Daniel stepped forward. "What is this place?" "A wound," Marrow whispered. "In the world. A door they found and never should have opened. I tried to contain them, but they learned me, became her." Daniel looked around. The shadows on the walls began to writhe. The girl stepped from them, older now, her face flickering between forms. "Now it's your turn," she said, and the pit began to breathe. Daniel stared at the pit, mesmerized by the slow, rhythmic pulsing. It felt like standing in front of a living heart, one older than anything that should exist in this world. The tendrils anchoring Dr. Marrow began to retract, pulling his withered body closer to the pit's edge. "You have to finish what I couldn't," Marrow rasped. "Seal it, before they cross again, before you're nothing but echo." The girl, now shifting through ages and faces like a deck of tarot cards, grinned. "But he's already begun to echo, Doctor. Haven't you noticed the skips? The glitches?" Daniel's thoughts slowed, like a record dragging across warped vinyl. He had noticed moments of lost time, hearing footsteps he didn't make, opening his mouth to speak, only to find someone else had already said the words. Like he was falling out of sync with himself. "What's happening to me?" he gasped. "You're being overwritten," she said softly, approaching the edge of the pit. "One cell at a time. The hollow ones don't consume you. They replace you, thought by thought, nerve by nerve, until you're no longer the version that walked into this house. Just a vessel, a shell." Dr. Marrow screamed then, not with pain, but with regret. "I tried to slow them down. I filled the house with myself. Mirrors, mazes, copies. But they learned me faster than I could unravel. They took her first. My daughter." Daniel's knees buckled. The pit began to glow faintly red from below. Suddenly, something rose from it. Not a creature, a shape, featureless and smooth, like a statue carved from smoke. As it ascended, it shimmered with reflections. Daniel's face, Marrow's, the girl's. Then dozens more. Hundreds. All flickering across its surface like trapped memories. "They're crossing," the girl whispered. "They're escaping the story. Unless you choose." "Choose what?" Daniel shouted. "Which he gets to stay." Marrow cried out. "Burn it. The copy. Before they finish." Daniel looked down. The bag. The camera. The notebook. His photos. His reflections. And then he understood. The house wasn't the prison. He was. Daniel's mind raced. Everything made sense, and nothing did. The house, the mirrors, the copies. It had never been about trapping them inside. It was about preventing himself from escaping. The shimmering figure floated above the pit, pulsating with stolen identities. It was faceless, yet he felt it watching him, judging, waiting for him to crack wide open and make room. "I'm still me," Daniel muttered. "I'm still." The mirror across the chamber suddenly lit up. In it, dozens of Daniels flickered in and out of existence. Some crying, some dead, one covered in blood, one with the girl standing behind him, smiling, one whispering to himself, over and over, "You're the echo now. You're the echo now. You're the echo now." Daniel dropped the camera. It clattered to the floor, the lens cracking. At that exact moment, he felt something tear inside his skull. A soft pop, like a bubble bursting in the back of his brain. The girl's voice was right behind him. "You only get to be real if you fight for it." "Fight what?" he demanded, spinning around. But she was gone again. Only her laughter remained. Then came the sound of movement. Hundreds of feet, or hands, or something else entirely, skittering across the walls of the pit. The thing from B. Lo began pulling itself up, piece by piece. Bones fused with wire. Limbs made from twisted memories. Its mouth wasn't a mouth, it was a hole full of faces, screaming in chorus. Daniel grabbed Harrow's journal from the bag. On the back cover, something was scrawled that he hadn't seen before, in what looked like fresh ink. Set fire to the lie. Let truth scream. Only the original cast a shadow. The lighter he always kept in his coat, souvenir from his father, was still there. His hands trembled as he looked at the bag. The camera. The journal. The proof of who he was. But that's what the house fed on, his obsession with proof. With identity. Behind him, the shape from the pit was nearly complete. The girl now stood at its shoulder, her eyes pitch black. They don't want you to choose, she said, voice calm. They want you to forget there was ever a choice. Daniel set the journal on the floor. Then the bag. Then the camera. He lit the flame. Everything inside him screamed. He dropped the fire. It caught instantly, and the chamber shook. The hollow one screamed, not in pain, but in rage. The reflections vanished. The shadows receded. The thing above the pit shrieked and collapsed inward, folding like a dying star. Then silence. The smoke rose in thick, oily columns, curling like fingers toward the ceiling. The journal, the camera, the photos. Everything burned with unnatural heat, their ashes evaporating before they even touched the floor. Daniel stood trembling, eyes fixed on the pit. The shapeless being was gone. The girl was gone. The walls no longer pulsed. The house was quiet. Then, a low moan echoed up from the pit, not inhuman this time, but unmistakably human. Daniel crept to the edge, expecting the impossible. Dr. Marrow, perhaps. Another version of himself, half-formed and whispering for help. But what he saw at the bottom wasn't a person at all. It was a door. A real one. Wooden. Ordinary. No carvings. No symbols. Just a door, resting upright in the blackness, casting a long shadow upward despite the absence of light. Something about it felt final. He descended into the pit slowly, his boots crunching over brittle remains, bones, fragments of mirrors, scorched leather. As he neared the bottom, the world became muffled, like sound itself was too afraid to follow him. The door had a handle. He hesitated, hand inches from it, and thought, what if the house has gone up there? What if it's just darkness now, waiting to finish me? Then he remembered something the girl had said, they can't lie like you can. And it struck him. The copy didn't burn. He had burned his belongings, but the echo, the thing they were building, might still be wandering the house, waiting to replace him once he left the pit. Unless he was the echo. Unless the real Daniel had already been hollowed. The thought twisted through his mind like a knife. He clenched his jaw and gripped the handle. Turned it. The door creaked open onto an impossible scene. His apartment. Daylight streamed through the windows. The smell of old coffee. His jacket on the hook by the door. The camera on the kitchen counter. He stepped through, and all the warmth vanished. Because there, sitting at the table with his back turned, was another Daniel. Reading the journal. Slowly, the other Daniel looked up and smiled. But this time, Daniel didn't run. He reached into his pocket and realized he still had the lighter. The other Daniel, the one already here, closed the journal and leaned back in the chair, studying him with a hollow calm. You burned it, he said. Impressive. Daniel didn't answer. The lighter in his pocket felt heavier than before, like it was made of iron instead of brass. Every second he stood here, he felt more out of sync, like this world was resisting him. Or worse, accepting him. The other Daniel stood slowly. His eyes were too still, too flat. You must be wondering which of us is real, he said. But does it matter now? They don't need both. Only the one that stays. Daniel stepped forward. You're the copy. And if I am, the echo said. I remember everything. Every second. Every thought. I know your father's lighter. I know how your sister died. I know the way you chew your lip when you're nervous. I am you. No, Daniel said. You aren't afraid. The copy tilted its head. A faint smile touched its lips. Fear is just a waste of time when you already know how the story ends. Daniel lit the flame. The copy didn't flinch. You burn me, it said, and you'll never know. You'll never be sure. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you were the echo all along. That's how they win. Not with teeth, but doubt. Daniel's hand trembled. Then he looked down at the journal on the table and realized it was wrong. The cover had the same scratches, the same wear, but the final pages were different. The real journal burned. This one was a memory of the journal, recreated by something that could only copy, not create. That was all he needed. He lunged forward, grabbed the journal, and jammed the flame beneath it. It caught instantly. The other Daniel screamed, not in pain, but fury. His skin rippled, bubbled, peeled. Beneath it was a shape of writhing shadows, half-formed and featureless. Daniel shoved the echo against the wall. "You're not me." "I was," it hissed. "I was going to be." The smoke spread fast, warping the apartment. The furniture melted. The walls stretched upward like pulled fabric. The echo collapsed, crumbling into ash and fragments of bone, trying to form a mouth. It whispered, one last time, "We could have been happy." Then silence. The house collapsed inward, and Daniel fell through flame, through light, through himself. Daniel woke in the field. Cold dew soaked his back. The sky above him was gray, early morning light leaking through the clouds. Birds chirped faintly in the distance. Wind rustled the tall grass. The house, the one in the field, was gone. Not burned, not collapsed. Just gone, as though it had never existed. He sat up slowly, the events of the night flooding back in disjointed fragments. The girl, the mirror, the hollowed corpse with his face, the pit, the echo. It felt like a dream, but his palms were still scratched. His clothes smelled of smoke. The lighter, still warm, rested in his jacket pocket. He was out, or so he thought. Gravenmore's town center was still a few miles away. He walked the whole way without seeing another soul. As he reached the main street, everything looked normal. Stores opening, people sipping coffee on benches, a mailman whistling as he delivered letters. Too normal. He stopped at a storefront window to catch his breath. That's when he noticed his reflection wasn't moving. He blinked. So did it. But half a second late. He stepped back, turned, looked into another window, same delay. His reflection was just slightly off. Not smiling, not frowning, just watching. A chill ran down his spine. He walked to the nearest diner, his stomach aching with hunger. When he stepped inside, a bell rang above the door. Heads turned briefly, then returned to their meals. The waitress smiled. "Coffee, please," he said, voice dry. She poured him a cup. "You passing through?" He nodded. She studied him. "You look familiar. Have you been here before?" Daniel hesitated. "No. First time." She tilted her head. "Huh. Strange. You look just like the guy who came through a few weeks ago. Same eyes." "Who?" She pointed toward the bulletin board near the counter. "A missing poster. Andrew Harrow." Daniel stood, walked to the board. Next to Harrow's poster was another. Old, faded, but unmistakably him. Same face. Same name. Daniel Hale. Missing since October 31st. Last seen, Gravenmore. He stumbled outside, breath catching. Looked into another shop window. His reflection was smiling now. He wasn't. Epilogue. The house in the field again. They say the house comes back when it's ready. That it remembers the ones who escape. That the hollow ones are always listening. Sometimes, at dusk, the field near Gravenmore grows quiet. Too quiet. Sometimes a traveler sees a light where there should be none. Sometimes a man walks the road, camera in hand. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you'll hear him whisper, "Which one of us came out?" The end.